Hello and welcome to the HYPIA channel, the International Association of Hyperpolyglots. I'm Dr. Usman Chohan, president of HYPIA, and today I have with me two AI specialists for our AI series. First of all, I introduce Ewa Duerr. She is a HYPIA member, a hyperpolyglot, and advisor to HYPIA on AI. And I want to welcome our special guest, Pak-Ming Wan, who is engineering lead at Google, an AI guru, and somebody who's going to teach us about some amazing stuff with a demonstration. So with that, I hand it over to Ewa to take the lead.
Yeah, thank you, Usman, and thank you for the HYPIA community for always watching and listening to our channel on how AI is making impact in cultural understanding and language understanding. This is super important for all of us to immerse ourselves in the community. So I'm super excited to introduce Pak as well, since we work a lot together within Google building AI technology. And I want to start with asking Pak to tell us about his background and make an introduction, because he's a very multi-culti person as well, and he's leveraging that into in his job every single day. Pak, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Usman and Eva. My name is Pak. Hi, I'm based out of Paris, France at the moment. I've been with Google for about 7 or 8 years, but previous to that, I was in consulting. So my job here is in applied AI, and what we try and do is really take AI and apply it to real world situations, right, on where real people can use it. I'm super glad to be here today to talk to you a little bit about the work I do and maybe provide some tools and how that might help you. For those of you inside HYPIA, also a couple of interesting personal facts. I actually met my wife at the Polyglot Club in Paris. She's a polyglot. She's great. I mean, I think everyone in Europe, right, is kind of like talking at least 2 or 3 languages. I only talk two, maybe a couple more at a very basic level. So really glad to be here and to exchange with you on this.
Tell us a little bit more about your background, because you were as well not born in France. You met your wife, but you were born in Asia. So tell us about a little bit your origins as well.
Yeah. Good question. So I was born in Australia. My parents were from Malaysia and my grandparents from China. So if you rewind back to the start of the 1900s, obviously in the Depression, the Great Depression of the 30s, life was very hard, right, for a lot of families in Asia. And so my grandparents decided to emigrate to Malaysia looking for a better life. And then they had both my parents, actually both of my grandparents from both sides, emigrated to Malaysia looking for a better life. Both of my parents were born there, and then they went to Australia right after the change in policy in the 1970s to open up the borders a little bit more. They moved to Australia. They had me, and I was born in Australia, and I was brought up by my grandmother because both my parents worked, and I started speaking Hokkien at the start, so I had to learn English as a second language. Then I moved over east to Sydney and Melbourne. I met a French woman who eventually wanted to come back to France. And so I followed her back, not speaking any French. And so I had to learn French. I've been here for about 16, 17 years now. Yeah.
Perfect. And then, so that multi-culti experience as well brought you to where you are today as well in building AI technology, leveraging that language capabilities across the globe. So since you are a guru of engineering within Google, truly, I wanted to make sure that the community as well understands how this technology is actually built from really the model to the output and how this works overall. So tell us a little bit, explain us a little bit, like step by step, what is happening in the translation, in building the models, in building the outputs, and so on and so forth, in that technology, in the AI technology.
Sure, not a problem. And so I've got a little presentation here. So what I'll do is I'll flip over to the presentation and I'll use that to help. And what I'll try and do is I'll try and keep it relatively straightforward and simple, because there's a lot of technical details actually inside the way that Google or other competitors of Google like Anthropic, Mistral, or OpenAI build their models, but they all fundamentally work in the same way, and they're all fundamentally trained in the same way. So what I'm going to do here on this image here, you can see an overview of one of these models. It's called Gemini. And let me explain to you fundamentally how it works. It's almost like a statistical model in that it takes an input sequence, which could be text, it could be audio, it could be an image, or it could be video. And then it looks at that, and then it spits out either an image or text, and now also today, potentially video as well. So really what you're talking about here is an extremely large, if you will, statistical engine that takes a set of inputs and then based on that picks statistically what the output should be. So the question is, how do we go about building these huge LLMs that are able to almost answer any question that you might pose it in any language and also respond reasonably, right, in any language? And so if we rewind back to 2017, 2018, all of this started with the first set of architectures around these kind of models, right, like transformer models. And the way that we had to build these language models was really inspired by how humans learned language as a child, right? Not maybe as adults, but really as a child. So I'm going to flip up a slide now, and I'm going to ask you a question to fill in the blank, right? So, you know, if you look at this, the cat something, most people will say the cat sat, right? But the cat jumped. It could have jumped. The cat could have ate something as well, right? But there's a higher probability that the answer is the cat sat. And so when we built these models, what we did, we were literally, we couldn't human label them because it would take too long to label all the training data, i.e. all the text of the world, say like Wikipedia. So what we did was we created an unsupervised learning. Basically, we got the model to learn by itself by taking text and then randomly hiding words, asking the model to guess what that word should be, and then check it based on the actual text. And by doing this over and over again, millions, billions of times, the model language from the language itself. And this is exactly how, you know, when you're a child, it's how you learn how to speak. You're learning these sequences of words or sounds, and you're putting them together, right, in a way that works, and you're getting feedback from your parents or from people around you saying, yes, that's good, or no, that's bad. And that's exactly how this works, right? The difference being that apart from being supervised as a child with your parents and, you know, the other kids, here it's being unsupervised by the actual language itself. So, second example, the something sat, right? So let's go through one of those training epochs and say, well, okay, I hit one word, but now let's hit another one. It could be the man sat, it could be the cat sat, it could be Mary, you know, the lion sat. And so what we also do is we vary the words. So we don't just take the text, but we also vary the words so that there's a certain amount of variation inside these models, so that when you present it with different situations, it is able to also handle those situations. It won't just always respond with the cat sitting, right? Particularly if you ask it something where it might not be associated with a cat. So now let's just zoom out a little. And on this topic of cats, let's look at the Wikipedia article on cats. So if you imagine this was maybe the article that we were using to train a model on cats, what we would do is we might say hide this word in the first sentence, right? Referred, and then we might ask it to guess what that might be. It might be also called, right? Or also named. But named would be bad because it doesn't fit inside this language sequence. And so based on that, right, the model would basically try and guess what it would be, and then we would try and train it. And that's fundamentally how it works on text. Is that kind of clear? Eva?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so now we have multimodality. So I'm going to move into the multimodal space. So we see like images of cats over here on the right-hand side. How do we go about getting these models to understand that that is a cat? Now, in a human, we know it's a cat because we've got neural structures inside our mind that are able to understand image, And actually, in another life, I also worked as a researcher in a vision lab, psychology vision lab in UWA, where we understood how like humans understand and process image. And so we have very well-defined structures inside our mind that are trained, like basically understand image, called V1, V2 in the back of our head, and then comprehend what it is, and then basically respond and say, yes, that's a cat. But how does, say, these models do it? Well, we do exactly kind of the same thing. We take an input image, which could be this input here. We then some text along with that image, and then we can basically then have an output associated with it. And the output here could be this use case. Well, here it is. And this is actually the real output from Gemini, which I just produced before this meeting. You can have this output describing the actual image. And so this leads to actually a very important point with these models is there's only so much data in the world that we have. And so there's a huge importance on labeling the data, right? And being able to create and curate combinations of data, for example, here on the left with the image and text and the output data on the right. Now, I'll be completely transparent with you, and that in DeepMind, the process that we actually use at Google to process is very, very, I guess, secret. It's obviously like an industry secret. And so everything I'm presenting here is public, right? Public information. It's not owned by Google. But you can imagine that in order to build these models, you can only go so far with human-generated data, right? Because not all of it's going to be good. So a lot of this data, particularly now, is also synthetic. We also use a lot of synthetic data inside our models. And what that means is the best way to prompt these models might not actually be a human. And so I'm going to now maybe switch over to the tool part for the folk out there looking at this video. And I'm going to introduce this idea of meta prompting. And meta prompting allows you to optimize your prompting for your use case. And so you've probably seen people saying, well, use this prompt here, use that prompt there. Actually, I recommend you not do that at all. I recommend that you get the model to write you the prompt for itself. And the reason I say that is that every time as a human, you're prompting the model, you're introducing noise, right? You're diverging the model from its training data. And so what you ideally want is actually the model to prompt itself. And the secret, like I guess, ultimate prompt for that is this one down here. And there's a keyword in all models. So if you're using Gemini or you're using Claude or Mistral or GPT or DeepSeek, this idea of a system prompt is in all of those models. And you can use this specific noun to allow you to access this mode to get the model to write an instruction for itself. Okay, so let's give that a try. Over here, I'm just going to move over here, and here's something that I've prepared earlier. So if you can see here, I've asked Gemini, and this, by the way, is Google AI Studio. This is the tool I use at work. Full disclosure, I work at Google, so obviously I use a lot of Google tools, but this is on my personal account. And AI Studio is Google's developer tool, which is actually free. You can use it for free. So after this video, if you want to maybe explore some of the things I'm doing, you can go ahead. As long as you've got a Gmail account, you can go to aistudio.google.com and use it. And the reason why I use this tool compared to the other tools that we have is that there is no intermediate prompt. You are working directly against the model. And so the performance of this tool, I feel anyway, is better. You learn more from using this tool compared to, I guess, other tools you might use. And it's free. And free is always good. So, yeah, free is always good, right?
Yeah.
So let's try this. Let's try this here.
Implementing and trying, definitely, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing is I want people here to know that this is not magic. It's not hard. It's very easy. And this idea of meta prompting will allow you to build your own tools, right? So, because I think in the future, very soon, people won't be relying on applications. We will be able to build our own applications that are kind of custom built around the needs that we want. And so what I'd like to do today is, if you will, build an application for the people inside this this community, this HYPIA community, to allow you to practice your language, right? So let's imagine I've got that problem. And so in meta prompting, I'm going to ask Gemini first to write me a system prompt for a multilingual conversationalist that can talk to me in any language. And then Gemini outputs this, right? This is the meta prompted prompt. So it's prompting itself. Okay, so let's have a look through it. You're a polyglot. Okay, very good. You can, in any language, detection, seamless switching. This is good. Tone is good. Do not ask about their language. This is good. Okay, so all of this is good. So what you can do is you just literally copy that. And then over here in system instructions, you paste it in. And that tells the model what to do. Okay, I'll just close this down. And then you select the right model to do that prediction of input on audio and output on audio. So in this case here, the model that does that, if you want to do this at home, is this model here, call audio. The rather long, lengthy named Gemini 2.5 Flash Native Audio Preview 09 2025. Let me explain to you what that means. Native audio is our model that's been trained on audio to audio. So instead of using text and audio, or say audio to text, this is using really audio tokens to audio tokens. And I'm going to select that because that's the model that supports multilinguality and also takes in audio and outputs audio. I'm going to provide my system instructions to be a multilingual conversationalist. And if you will, I might give it a try. You ready, Eva, Usman?
Absolutely.
Yeah, has to be multilingual.
Okay, let's try it. Let's see how good my multilingual skills are. I'm going to give this a go.
You just need
Hi
to
there.
switch to the new.
Oh, yes, please switch. Please switch to the. Oh, I need to switch here. Perfect.
Yeah.
That always helps. And actually, that means you didn't see it. So I don't know if you cut these videos. Would you like me just to do that introduction again?
No, I think we are fine.
Okay, perfect. So here's the model system instructions, and I'm going to click on talk, and let's try it. Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. How can I help you today?
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Très bien, merci. En quoi puis-je vous aider aujourd'hui?
Guten Abend, wie geht's?
Guten Abend. Mir geht es gut. Danke der Nachfrage. Was kann ich für Sie tun?
Buonasera, come stai?
Buonasera. Sto bene, grazie. Come posso aiutarti?
你好，我叫文本明。
你好，文鹏明。有什么可以帮您的吗？
おはようございます。
おはようございます。何かお困りのことはありますか？
Bonjour, je retourne en français. Est-ce que vous parlez un petit peu français avec moi, s'il vous plaît?
Oui, bien sûr. Je peux tout à fait parler français avec vous. Comment allez-vous aujourd'hui?
Oui, je vais très bien. En fait, moi, je viens juste discuter avec vous parce que je voulais vraiment améliorer mon niveau de français.
C'est une excellente idée. Parler français régulièrement vous aidera beaucoup à vous familiariser avec la langue. Avez-vous des sujets que vous souhaitez aborder en particulier?
So I'm just going to stop it there. But you could see that these new models, and I think this model supports 26 languages, can seamlessly switch between language. And then if you want, you can actually prompt it by altering this prompt or by generating your own system prompt to help you work on a particular area of your language, right, with audio. I find these models actually incredibly good for learning and myself. And so I do this myself a lot. And you can see like it works for me anyway, I think incredibly well. The voices are quite realistic. The transcription is pretty good. The language detection is pretty good nowadays. And I think this gives a window into the future, actually, of how some of these models might work. And these models now are really becoming a lot more kind of polyglot in purpose as well, right? Which breaks down a lot of barriers previously where we had language limitations, where, for example, just stop that and go back here, where, you know, we would build things, right? We'd always say, oh, it's always this region first. It's always English first. But why, right? We don't have those so much those limitations anymore because these models fundamentally are able to work in any language. Yeah. So now my
how this will work then for the edge languages, right? Like that are not the one of the 26, so to speak, supported. I hope that in the future we'll expand that as well. But that's an area of focus as well in the future.
So I think the way we would do that, and actually it's a bit more degraded in mode, but we have these ideas of cascade models where instead of going audio to audio, and you can imagine the training that is very hard because there's a lot more data we require to train audio to audio. What we can do is we can train text to text. And in text to text, there's a lot better support for these other smaller languages outside that core 26. And then you have specialist speech to text and text to speech models, which can basically then do the understanding, use the text model, and that works well for like those other languages as well. There's a hit on latency, of course, because you have to wait for that transferring. But generally nowadays, those kind of models can work in like under a second for a response. So still very usable and relatively interactive.
We could see that how real time the AI was reacting. And the other aspect when you were presenting, I was thinking about it will get even better in cultural understanding the more multimodal we get, because the AI will be not only able to understand the text, but as well the context from the video. So are we, for example, we are talking English, right? But at the same time, if I am in, let's say, with the video from Sydney, I know this is a conversation somewhere in Australia, right? Yeah. Even though it's in English and it's not in London or it's not in New York. So these are the capabilities that are as well enabled those days with the multimodal, where we not only look at the text and large language models, but we look at foundational models, so to speak, as we started calling them, because language is just one part of the foundational multi-modal capabilities that the human beings have. And just to finish a little bit, like apart from the tools and playing and learning the language together with the AI, well, are there any other recommendations, Pak, that you wanted to leave the community with?
Wow. Yeah, I think particularly around AI, I think the one thing I would say is when I look at applying AI, I have kind of these shortcuts in my mind, these simple shortcuts, mental shortcuts that help me kind of work and apply AI. And I'll leave maybe another kind of tidbit to you here. And that is you need to find the perfect human. So like, it sounds a bit crazy, like why I say that, but like generally when I try and solve these problems is I try and find the perfect human, because I'll tell you why. It's because in real life, as in this world here, right? People have jobs, they're doing things, they're trying to learn. And so all of these things, these human things that we're trying to do are effectively tasks and processes. And that's the context, right? And so when we want to apply AI into that situation, what you want to do is, before you even start, is you want to curate that context. You want to understand, what is this task? How does the perfect human do it? What is this process? How does a perfect human do it, right? Whether it be learning or doing something. And finding the right person that is able to curate all of that for you, right? In whatever form it might be text, it might be audio, it might be video, is the fastest accelerator that you will ever have when you use any of these tools, if you combine it with the meta prompting thing. So for example, I find a perfect human, I interview them like this, I take this video recording and I send it into Gemini and I say, write me a system prompt that basically can do the job described by the human in that video. Yeah. And that's basically the best input you will ever provide. So finding the perfect human is my shortcut all the time.
Yeah, and you know this yourself and myself as well, speaking currently like 8 languages. knowing the language really helps in developing the AI technology, and the other way around, right? We are learning from AI, and we are as well making the technology better by being able to provide that that learning. So I even when you were explaining, I had to think about myself, how I learned the languages that I speak, and it was never like in this textbook. So if you ask my husband, do I know what accusative, dative is in German? All those words. No, I learned it because I met my husband and I started speaking German in a similar way as you were, Pak, showing AI learned through the transformer architecture. So this is super exciting. And yeah, thank you so much for that interview, for giving those insights. And we look forward to the feedback as well from the community. Usman, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Eva. I'm really, really grateful for this interview. I enjoyed it so much, and I have some ideas based on the workshop we just had because I want to try in the AI studio, for example, that I speak in Urdu, but it answers me in Farsi, so I brush up that way because, try other things that I say in one and the answer comes. Let's work on that a little bit. So there's plenty of ideas we can do just from the important door that you have opened for us. Very grateful for your time, and Eva, you are really the best advisor on AI that HYPIA could have envisaged. So I'm grateful to both of you for your time. It was awesome, really awesome.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.